really briefly because we're not going into any type of preparation or anything. I just wanted the real you. So, I mean, you're the Kevin expert. So, just to let you know a little bit more about what we're doing at the podcast, it's called Connect the Story. So, basically, what we're doing is, and the way that we feel about things is that every story is a connection. So, everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has a little bit of a profession tied to their personality. So, what we're doing is we're actually talking to the person because we want to know everybody and their story. Like, what made them go into that profession or why they do what they do. So, yeah. To keep building on what we were talking before camera, so just to give a little heads up to everybody. So you said that basically you like traveling. Even before we get into you and the whole story, it's funny that you say that because it's mind blowing. It's amazing, like that idea. So what you said is you're going on vacation next week and you're planning to take 2 weeks off and you're going where?
I don't know.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I've never done this before, but it's always been, I grew up around here.
Okay.
I went to Wilson High School and I didn't really travel much. You know, I'd go with my mom to like New Jersey or Knobles or whatever, but we didn't go very far. And in high school, I went to Spain with my Spanish class. I loved it. I chose a college based on being a travel abroad. I studied abroad for a semester, and I love traveling.
Okay.
But it's always been generally planned.
Okay.
So
like usual.
Yeah. But I've always had this goal. It's probably a little romantic goal, but like I just want to walk into an airport and just pick a plane and go somewhere. So on Tuesday morning, I'm going to Philadelphia Airport with a book bag, a computer bag, so I can work on the way. And I'm just going to take whatever plane I feel like taking to somewhere warm.
Okay, wow.
So maybe the Caribbean, Latin America, Arizona, I don't really know yet.
So that is the prequel, everybody. This is Mr. Kevin Lugo. And we're talking today to a person who is extremely adventurous. And we want to get to know you more.
Sure.
So, as a question, just to basically get the basics out of the way, how do you usually introduce yourself to people?
I say, hi, I'm Kevin.
And what do you say about yourself?
I like to talk about things that are not work. I mean, I've been dating someone for like 6 or 7 months now, and my friends ask me questions like, what should you do for work? I was like, I don't know. You know, like, we didn't talk about that for like 3 or 4 months. You know. Yeah. So I tell people like what I do, like what do I do for fun, what's important to me. So I like being outdoors, I like playing board games, I like reading. People find out very quickly that I moved my mom in with me recently because she has some health issues, and being close, like geographically close was nice, but being in the same house as me just has so many benefits.
Yeah.
I also tell people I like chocolate and beer and food. Like, I don't start with like, hi, I'm Kevin, I'm a blank job,
Exactly, okay. So. Great. I just find that sometimes for some people it's hard to talk about themselves. It's usually what they do and then, what have you, or it's just, it clicks right away. But it's difficult for most people to get into like a personal conversation. So that's kind of like why we're doing this. But in that same sense, what is it that you do? How would you describe what you do for work?
So my official job, the job that my 9 to 5 I get paid to do, is I am the utility incentives manager for Schneider Electric. Okay. Probably no one has any idea what that means. But if you think about it, your house, you have hopefully LED light bulbs are very energy efficient. Okay. You probably have an HVAC system that maybe has a furnace or an air conditioner. Those same things exist at much larger scales for universities, school districts, municipalities, etc. Okay. And Schneider Electric is a large company, but my group, what we do is energy performance contracting. Okay. So we make energy related improvements, and we guarantee savings, and we try and help you, pay for the project with the energy savings in a nutshell. What I do is I go out to utilities. So around here, that's MedEd, UGI, PPO, and I look for the programs that they have in place to help these our customers, our clients, pay for these improvements. So there's rebates for more efficient HVAC units. There's incentives for upgrading to LED lighting or using like dimmers or occupancy sensors to turn lights off and on in the room.
Okay.
All the way up to really complex building automation, building systems that regulate the temperature, to solar, to I don't get too involved with them because I don't know anything about them, but like wastewater treatment plants or combined heat and power, where we're actually helping a customer generate electricity at one site and use what would normally be wasted heat for other processes on site. So it's quite a range, but at the end of the day, my job is helping our customers get as much money back from utility programs as I can.
But let me ask you this, and this is where the personal part comes in. Why? Like, how did you come about that job and that industry? Because what you have said so far, and what I've heard you say, is that you like the outdoors, you like nature. Basically, you're very adventurous, and you like to experience different things. And you're talking now about sustainability. You're talking about efficiency, like energy, and all that good stuff. And you're mentioning the community as well. So in a sense, you're actually helping the end user. And I've known you not too much, but as the few things that I know about you show me that you actually are working towards that, helping people just build a more sustainable environment. Why? Why do you think that you're inspired to do that, or how did you end up working with sustainability?
There's not like a eye-opening moment, I think, for me that changed something for me. I grew up, going to Knoebels, camping at campgrounds. Like we weren't skiing, we weren't backpacking or sailing. We weren't doing like the exotic kind of fun things, but we would just, we go outside. Grew up playing baseball. I wasn't playing too many video games. I was outside. So I always liked being outside, and when I went to college, that was my first interest, was like, well, I'm just going to study environmental studies. I like the outdoors. I like environmental things. It's kind of been a slow progression. And I think part of it is kind of just like good old fashioned common sense. Like we weren't poor growing up. I would probably describe us as like, working class, lower working class. So we didn't waste things. I remember my uncle lived with us until I was like 12 maybe. And we were on the seafood diet, which I hate seafood. But if it's seafood, you eat it. If you seafood, you eat it because you get free food. Like you're not going to turn that down, So I grew up not wasting things, trying to be efficient, even though I didn't really understand the environmental side of it. Like turn the lights off when you weren't using them because that's wasted energy. It's wasted cost, So that's always kind of my background. But then going to college, I learned about the interconnections between our waste, our energy, our business and personal decisions. I remember one of the first things we did as a freshman, I looked at how many Earths it would take to support my lifestyle based on like the house size, the amount of travel you do, what kind of food you eat, etc. So it was really building on my background and kind of common sense stuff, learning about more of the details of the science and the environment and the policy. And then it snowballed from there. So
it's great because it's like you learned something when you were growing up and you actually took it and you made something with it and now you're helping others do the same. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And I worked in, my first job was with food bank. It's not really sustainability that people probably think of, because it's not really about the environment, but sustainability is also about the people and making sure our communities are sustainable. So I was helping people in the community with food access. I worked on transportation issues because I like to bike. And back to that first question, what do I tell people? I stopped now, I got tired of it, but I would tell people I biked across the country twice. And then I talk about that forever. So I've started with that. But I did bike stuff after I got to
in Seattle. That's so cool. That's great.
Yeah, it's just been an evolution. I did bike stuff. I've done energy. I've done waste management. That's what I did with the city. Now it's back kind of energy and building efficiencies. So it's just all encompassing.
That's insane. But going back to the bikes, and I know that we met in an event. that we were putting bikes together for the kids in the community. So again, we go back to the fact that you like giving back, and it's good to see how you're giving. It's all encompassed in giving resources back, making sure that it's sustainable. What you're doing is not creating waste, just reusing or using things more efficiently. And then also it's like, hey, I like having fun outdoors. It's like, let me just help kids, do the same. So, and I like the fact you mentioned video games because I did that a lot. So it's like, it's kind of like that generation.
I'm making up for lost time.
Yeah. I hear you. But let's say, I'm sure that in your journey and what you've been doing, you've had stories with clients or you've seen things. So what is one of your favorite stories of, I don't know, changes that you have seen or that you have been able to achieve in someone's life or any client? I know.
Funny, it's hard.
It's a deep question.
But funnily enough, I feel like the most rewarding things I've done, there's been a few things work related that have been very rewarding, but it tends to be interpersonal. Maybe it's a colleague, maybe it's a client, but it's not really about the job I'm doing. So for example, when I moved back here at the end of 2016. And here being Berks County, I was living in Temple at the time. I moved into near Albright for a while, and I lived a couple places around the city. And I grew up in Wilson, right? I was told that like if you drive into the city, like you're gonna leave without any rims, like you're gonna jack a car up. I had such a strong stereotype fed to me, which unfortunately I think people are still feeding that stereotype.
I agree.
But I had the stereotype fed to me, and I came back and I lived in the city. And like, yeah, there's problems with the city. It's a city. There's problems with every city.
Absolutely.
But I started bringing people in. Like Canal Street was very safe. Like let's go to Canal Street for they used to do the $1 off or $2 off, whatever, for any beer on Tuesdays. And so a lot of my, I think, biggest things that I'm proud of is interpersonal. I started bringing some people into the city when I first moved back here. All of my friends now, a lot of them have not been historically super outdoorsy, but I got a lot of people into climbing. I had 3 people in a row I either introduced or reintroduced to backpacking that did the AT. So they hiked the entire AT, 24, 23, 22, 3 years in a row. My friends hiked the AT. And I didn't do it. I was like, but I took them out. I'm backpacking with them, and I've introduced them to something new. So just stuff like that. Like it's not tied to making money. It's not tied to accomplishing professional goals. It's just, sharing your love, sharing your passion, sharing your gifts with other people, and seeing how it grows.
There was something that you said in a conversation we had a few years ago that stuck with me. So this is more of a personal thing that I took from that conversation that I had with you, and that's the beauty of having conversations where we talk about stories and things that make us who we are. So that one thing that you said in that conversation was that in the position where you're in when you were working in the city, you said that all you can do is make sure that where you are, you're actually doing the job and improving the situations that are around you, improving systems, and just doing everything in your power to shine and make sure that everything is being done in that. And then from that, things grow or people grow in that same environment. So I wanted to thank you for that because that has helped me a lot. Our conversation might not have been really long or gone into so many different things, but I took something from that and actually restored my faith in humanity a little bit because it's like, hey, I just felt like, okay, some things are not working. It's like, why are the people that are not in certain positions doing what they're supposed to be doing? And it's like they kind of stumble upon them or what have you, but you have been able to, no matter where you are, actually move it up, and that's remarkable, and I admire that about you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad I had the opportunity to finally tell you. So let's say, because we're talking more, again, we're turning more into the profession and talking about that, but I want to talk a little bit more about you and just kind of like pick your brain into like from a few different angles. So, for example, can you tell me, or do you remember the best compliment that you've ever received?
Might just been right now. I feel so
Thank
inspired.
you.
Man, off the top of my head, I don't know. I had to think about that a little more.
I know these are not easy questions. I know.
Yeah.
But okay, if we move on to advice, what do you think is the best advice you've ever received?
I've gotten, yeah, honestly, mentorship is something that I've struggled with.
Okay.
I professionally, I don't feel like I've gotten a lot of mentorship.
Okay.
Personally, I've had some. I'm going to cheat here a little bit and say like my mom. My mom was a single mother raising me, so a lot of what I learned about the world comes from her. And like I said, we struggled a little bit.
Okay.
But she always managed to have food on the table, and she's at all of my baseball games. She never missed any one of them. So I don't know that a piece of advice like verbally is the most impactful, but for me, it's they always say like your actions speak louder than words, right?
Okay.
It's not what people teach me; it's what I see them do. I saw my mom somehow, hold a job, take care of me, take care of my grandfather when he got sick, come to all my baseball games. I don't to this day I have no idea how she did all those things. I can't imagine doing that myself.
Yeah.
But seeing people, I had when I did my first cross country bike ride, we were raising money for young adults with cancer, and so I met this woman named Lydia who lived in Chicago at the time, and we got to meet her in person when we were there. She was, I don't know, mid-20s at the time probably.
Okay.
And I believe she was in the middle of getting her law degree while she was being diagnosed with cancer.
Wow.
And it's like, you just see people overcoming things that you can't help but be inspired, because it just reminds you that you are probably your biggest enemy of success, because you could do it. You can do it. You just have to believe in yourself. You have to work hard.
That's absolutely true, and it's so many different things that you see, but then you have that example. It's like people who actually overcome.
Yeah.
That's okay.
People just like you, not $100 million a year winners. We're not talking about people who are are elected officials or superstars. Like, there's normal people who are succeeding despite all the challenges that you would also face.
Absolutely. And to keep trying and not giving up. Thank you. And okay, this is a difficult one too. So if you had the chance to have dinner with 3 people, no matter past, present, whatever, who would they be and why?
I guess kind of selfishly on the first one, I'd like to have dinner with my maternal grandfather.
Okay.
I knew him growing up, but he had a stroke when I was like 1 or 2.
Okay.
And he was never the same afterwards. He was a bit of a chain smoker, fish at the bar all the time. But I remember vividly spending time with him as a child. He was always very quiet. I never really knew like what was happening behind the face, So I'd love to get to know him, and also we realized we don't know much about his history, like family history. So I'd love to learn about that. His time serving with the military.
Yeah.
There's so many things about him I don't know, and I didn't realize how much I cared until I was in college, and I was the first person to graduate from like a 4-year college in my family, and he wasn't alive to see it.
Okay.
And so there's been some milestones that I wish I could share with them. After that, man, I don't know. There's so many choices. Let's see. I pick a personal one. Let's pick a good historical one.
I'm going to help you out a little bit there, because we provide language solutions and services. So I just want to how about if language was not a barrier? Language was not a barrier, so that probably broadens the pool a little more.
Okay.
So if language was not a barrier, who would you like to have a conversation with?
Okay. I think probably I would love to go back to, I'm sorry, I don't have a name for you, but like maybe a Mesopotamian leader or a Mayan leader, right? Someone that we consider to be either like the birth of humanity or one of these ancient civilizations that we unfortunately just don't know that much about.
True.
You know, like history is written by the winners,
Yeah.
and unfortunately they weren't the winners.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be really interesting not to ask them about like their technologies and their temples and why are the pyramids the way they are, you know.
Okay.
But like, what is life like for you? Like, what are your values? What motivates you today? Because, you know, I think today we're very material, and so going back that far in time when things were different, religious beliefs were different, I just loved it. I think it'd be fascinating to have a conversation with something that's really so foreign from our day to day.
Okay, that's, and you know what, and that's amazing that you say that because I like history too. So I've been watching like documentaries and just reading up on things and how the Aztecs or how like different civilizations were so different than the way that we understand them today. It's like they had these huge cities when in Europe and other areas they were like tiny, but they were obviously different circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have in this side of the world, you have all these enormous cities that were clean, that were sustainable, that they were able to maintain in a way that was actually comfortable for everybody, and that was a huge challenge back then.
Mm-hmm.
So just the fact that you're saying is, I don't want to know what your technology is like. I don't need to know. I just want to know how your day to day is like. So that would be such a big difference between what we know from history than when someone is actually giving you that from there.
Well, you brought it back to me, technology and history.
Yeah.
I think my third person would be someone like Tesla. You know,
Okay.
Someone whose invention has completely changed the course of history and the technologies we use today. Because I'd love to hear, in their own words, what they think they're contributing. You know, I think a lot of times you invent something and you're inventing it for a specific solution to your specific problem, and you might solve that, but the main use of your invention has nothing to do with it, you know. So it's like they were certainly interested in electricity for lighting. That was the first one, the big use of electricity. But you know, electric vehicles now, solar panels, wind. Like, I'd be really curious to hear from someone like Tesla what it took for them to get to that point, and then what they would have envisioned the future of their invention to be.
And I think you actually struck a chord there because it just makes you think that the inventions that actually changed the world were not inventions of someone that was trying to get rich. You know, they're trying to, I want to make money, so I'm going to try to solve this problem. It's more like, this is my passion, this is something that I feel like I can fix or that I can do something about, and then they actually go and do it.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the whole like heady topic of like patents and stuff, but I think things have changed a lot because invention is a lot more technically challenging now than perhaps it was, because I mean, a lot of our inventions are software oriented, code oriented, very heavy tech oriented. And of course that takes some level of expertise that a lot of people don't have. I always do like when people invent like random gizmos that end up like the fidget spinners that go real popular for a while. Like, who invented that?
Oh man, I don't know. I love that person because I love me a fidget spinner.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's three people.
Yeah. I mean, and then you have a little bit of everything. Yeah. That's cool. But in regards to your passions, because I will dare to say that what I've seen is that you've taken something that you learned, and then you just grown on it and you built on it, and now that's what you do today. But what makes you inspired in the work that you do or what you do? Like, how do you keep going in that? How do you keep the enthusiasm going, or what do you like to see that fuels your passion even more?
Well, for work, part of the reason I specifically chose Schneider Electric, I've been on a goal since before the pandemic, but certainly during the pandemic, of being able to work remotely. I work remotely now.
Okay.
So part of the reason I chose Schneider Electric was that it has a very good work-life balance.
Okay.
I'm able to just take off if I need to go to my mom's doctor's appointment when it's sunny and warm. Like today, I can leave a little early, play some disc golf, and then work late that evening or work on the weekend or whatever.
Okay.
So that is something. The other thing for work side of stuff is I'm helping specifically public entity, nonprofit type agencies
Okay.
Become more efficient and helping with the financing to do that. And I worked for the Seattle Department of Transportation. I worked for Food Bank in Seattle. I worked for the city of Reading. I've worked for the Berks County Community Foundation. So I've done a lot of work in that public and nonprofit sector.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to bring the sustainability side of things to the public's work side of things, understand kind of how they go together,
Okay.
has been really nice. And I honestly was looking for getting out of the public and nonprofit sector and trying to work for a large company. I just never done that before.
Okay.
I thought it'd be interesting to see what kind of philosophies, resources, benefits, and things a company could provide.
Okay.
So.
And let me ask you this. So we're talking about different sectors and we're talking about different areas, but in those that you have seen, because you've seen so many of them, what do you think it's a big mistake or the biggest mistake we do regarding sustainability or, basically just being more efficient with our resources?
I think there's two, maybe three broad strokes, I'd say. The first is just policies. Everybody complains about gas prices. I understand the complaint because I understand it hits people hard in their pocketbook, especially if they have to commute for 45 minutes an hour for work.
Yeah.
I would honestly rather gas prices be more expensive, because if gas was more expensive, we would make different decisions. We would buy more fuel efficient cars. We would live closer to work, right? We would make different decisions if the incentives around us aligned.
Okay.
So I think number one is just policies. Part marketing, part policy. Recycling was a big part of my last job.
Yeah.
Recycling has a lot of potential, but if you look at the history of recycling, it really was pushed by larger corporations that wanted to sell us single-use plastics.
Okay.
The better solution would be, at least from an environmental standpoint, would be to go back to when you get your milk delivered to your house, right? We used and we reused.
Okay.
So I think policy, which brings in, of course, politics and money and everything, but policy is a big part of it.
Okay.
Another part is, I think, just ignorance, lack of education. I don't want to say people who don't believe sustainability is important are ignorant.
Okay.
What I want to say is that I don't think most of us understand the larger implications of decisions we make.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of people don't understand like public water sources, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There are some places, like Michigan's a great example, right? There are places where there are issues with the water. But generally speaking, if you're buying bottled water, you're buying municipal water that's someone branded and sold you for like 10 times, 20 times, 100 times the cost.
Okay.
So we don't understand a lot of those facts.
I don't. You just put me down right now. I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah, I don't want to name any brands. I don't really know.
No, of course.
But like you buy Dazina or Dasani or whatever. Like a lot of times that is spring water. The spring is like in some place in New Jersey that they just go and filter it and put a label on it.
Okay.
And like we think recycling is really good. A lot of that stuff it gets downcycled, which means it loses its quality every time, and eventually it's going to get thrown away.
Okay.
Renewable energy is great, but we do have to worry about like what's the long-term use of the materials, right? There's so many things that it's complicated. We just don't understand.
Okay.
So you got policy.
Yeah.
You got ignorance or lots of education about the consequences.
Yeah.
And then I think the other one is I think that we've lost the communal nature of our society.
Okay.
So again, going back to Mesopotamia, going back to the Mayans, they had, it takes a village to raise a child mentality a lot of times where your family was your immediate family, your extended family, your neighbors. It might be a whole community of people. Other cultures today still do have the extended family portion, maybe, but most of the time, especially in America, it's really just your immediate family. You're not worried about the impacts of other people.
Yeah.
You know, so I think when you start to understand that the decisions you make have negative impacts on other people, and you care about those other people, you make better decisions.
Absolutely.
And I think if you look around the world, which countries are leading on sustainability? The Scandinavian countries. Yeah. Scandinavia is small. They've always had a kind of a more socialist approach to democracy.
Okay.
And I remember I studied abroad in Denmark. They're very homogeneous. You know, there's 5 million people in Denmark, and until the last 10 years, they all had the same stories growing up, the same values. They went to the same schools. Yeah. They watched the same cartoons. It was all the same, and so it's much easier to relate with people. I think today, we might care about our family, we might care about our friends, but we don't often think about the implications for other people.
I think that that's paramount. Just the fact that it's us and them. So if it's us and them, then okay, I take care of mine and my circle, and then that they can worry about themselves. So I think that I agree. It might be a numbers thing, it might be just the system, but I agree. When you just separate yourself from the rest of your community, it's like there's no unity.
Yeah, and something I kind of want to touch on because it's really shaped my life the last maybe 5 years. In my 20s, I worked for nonprofits, I worked for public agencies, I volunteered a lot. I think I try to do a lot of good through specifically what we think of as the things you're supposed to do, which is volunteering, right? Working for a public agency, etc. Yeah. I got real burnout doing that.
I bet.
You know, I got really burnout. Yeah. I've started to get back involved a little bit more in volunteering. I volunteer like United Way, for example. But the way I look at it is we're relying on 10% of the people to do 90% of the extracurricular work. Yeah. If everybody just said, you know what, I'm going to pick up a little bit of trash on my way to work, or I'm going to help this person who looks lost and confused, right? Or I'm going to check in on my neighbor because it's 10 degrees outside and I know that they're elderly and no one's checking in on them. If everybody did a little bit, no one would get burned out. No one would feel like the burden's on them. And I think you don't have to, consciously think about the person in Wisconsin or in Florida or in China. If you think about people around you who you don't know, and other people do that too, I think we'll all be better off. And so what I've been trying to do, having gotten a little burnout, is take my impact more on a personal level. So I'm doing some real estate investing, and I'm really trying to do it the right way. So I'm providing quality, affordable housing for people. I'm getting my friends into the outdoors. I'm having to take care of my family. So I think that if we all just do a little bit more, we'd see some progress.
I love what you're saying because it hits me in particular because I've always felt that if you care about a problem, if you are actually affected by it and you feel like something needs to be done, if you're the one that cares about it and you do nothing, then how do you expect someone else to do it? Because guess what? You're the one that cares. You are the one that we need to actually do something about it. But you brought a very interesting point as well, is that when that happens and when you actually start doing something about it, you might find yourself with, the red tape, bureaucracy, you might find yourself with different ideas and different, priorities from people, institutions, or what have you. And then there's the burnout, and then it's like you find that wall. You can't swim against the current for, too long. Because before feeling that burnout, but how do you feel, or I know it might be a really difficult question, but how do you feel that we can get past that? How do you feel like we can once again, or probably try to be more of that initiative of doing something? If this is what I care about, how can I get involved? How do you think we go from the pushback to actually, pushing forward?
put yourself out of your comfort zone. First thing I'm gonna say, out of your comfort zone. I did it for fun while you're going on this trip. I'm very nervous. Like, I'm not the worrying type, so I'm fine, but like I am definitely nervous about hopping on a plane with no plan.
Yeah.
Like, do I buy a one-way ticket? Do I buy two? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think that's how we grow. And that's also how we start breaking down barriers, right? I remember when I was a freshman in college, we took this freshman seminar course that was, it's not, you take it to experience something you're interested in, not necessarily learn like towards your academic goals. I took a course called Voice of the Rebel in America.
Okay.
And so we read classic and watched classic like rebellion type movies. One of my favorite ones, it's called The Weatherman. It was about activists, like Vietnam protesters turned somewhat domestic terrorists. It was very interesting about their story. But one of the tasks our professor had us do was we had to pick from a variety of things that would put us out of our comfort zones. So I chose the one that I had to call someone who died on my birthday. Well, their family. I called their family and I researched them. So I wrote a paper. I was in Gettysburg College, and I found someone at the local microfilm, if you know what those are anymore. At the microfilm in my library, I found local newspapers, and I called someone who lived maybe like half an hour away, who's, I don't remember now, it's been 10 years or whatever, but someone whose father, I think, or husband died on my birthday. Mm-hmm. And I sat down with them, I had a conversation with them, I wrote a paper about it. Wow. That's pretty uncomfortable. I had some other people in class. Gettysburg's mostly a white school. Mm-hmm. The town's largely Hispanic, some African American. I had people whose choice was, we're going to go to an all-black congregation, and we're going to go for the entire semester.
Wow. Okay.
And they felt uncomfortable. But I think that helps you grow as a person, and it also helps you realize, how about the African American or the Hispanic who's the only one in your school that's mostly white, right? You're feeling the same discomfort other people feel. And I think that is a bond that really strengthens us as individuals and also helps us grow as a community.
Right. I share that point of view with you in the fact that, traveling like you're doing, and it's the fact that you see a different world. It's like you have different points of view. It's like it broadens your perspective on things, and it makes you more empathic and just be able to have more tools to, do what you have to do and then live how you want to live.
Well, and it can really be refreshing. When I biked, I biked across the country with a charity group the first time from Baltimore to Seattle. Okay. The second time I did it by myself. I went from Seattle down to Long Beach.
Just for kicks.
Just for kicks. Down the coast. We are talking about a pedal bike. I went down the West Coast and then I went to New Orleans from there. There was some, trains and stuff in the middle. But I always tell people, if you are feeling down, if you're angry at society, if you think everybody's terrible, go do a cross-country bike trip. Because yes, you will meet some terrible people. Please give cyclists plenty of space. But I met people who would stop and be like, hey, you look thirsty. You want a beer? You want some ice cream? I got some fresh fruit. Wow. I stay with people who I just met randomly. They're like, hey, I remember I went into this town it was during the World Series in Arizona. And I went to a bar to get dinner and then just have a drink and wait until it got dark so I could find a place to pitch my tent outside and no one would bother me. Yeah. And I just got to talking, and there was a guy there who was in town. He had rented a place. He was just checking out the town to maybe move there. Yeah. I stayed with him. He made me breakfast the next morning and sent me on my way.
No way.
Yeah, I stayed with this older couple who they've never, since they were kids, they were probably in their 70s or 80s, never biked. But their daughter did a trip like mine. And there's a website that's kind of like couch surfing, if you're familiar with that, where people can stay for free when they're traveling. Okay. It's for biking. And their daughter did that. And they were so amazed at the generosity and so thankful that she met people along the way who would, make sure she was safe and taken care of, that they started opening their home up to travelers. Wow. Because they wanted to give back too. Wow. So I think putting yourself out there, going on adventures, meeting new people, can be stressful, can be scary, but it's also a really great way to refresh your faith in humanity.
And it's really rewarding every time that it's like you try something new that you are thinking of a million different things that could go wrong. And 99% of those things never happen.
Yeah.
So it's like, just, it's like you say, get out of your comfort zone and you might not be that uncomfortable afterwards.
Yeah, it'll probably be a little scary. I'll tell you, the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
That's true.
Because after I haven't done anything like this in a while, so I'm getting a little nervous, but if I do it this time, I'll do it again.
Calculated risk.
Yeah.
You have a way of getting there, you have a way of getting back, it's not that scary after,
No, and my best tip is commitment device. So for me, my commitment device, something that makes me follow through with what I say I'm going to do, I just tell everybody.
Okay.
I've told
Okay.
several dozen people I'm going to do this trip and I'm leaving on Tuesday. So they expect me to text them on Tuesday and tell them where I'm going.
Yeah.
So if I don't, I'm very, very embarrassed.
I hear you. Okay.
So
it's like, okay. But you mentioned the website about couch surfing. Do you know it?
You just Google couch surfing.
Couch surfing.
Couch surfing is it's not exclusively like a party scene, but it's generally like younger people, Europe, traveling, more of like a party, backpacky type scene. The website that I use when I was biking is called Warm Showers. .org, I believe.
Okay.
And that's exclusive for people who are traveling by bike. And those are both places where you can find free housing. Some people may ask you to help with some chores or whatever, but places to stay for a couple of days while you're traveling.
That's nice. I'm gonna post that in there because that's a really, really good resource.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. So just to wrap things up and just a few takeaways of what I've heard today. Number one is get out of your comfort zone. That what you want to do, just do it. Just it might feel uncomfortable at the beginning, but then just go for it and it'll be easier. Also, you talked about the sustainability part is more like education and more of, just getting to know more about how your decisions affect others, not just your immediate circle. It's more like broader. And if we all do a little bit more, then obviously we're going to make everything better for everybody. What other takeaways or what else would you like us to remember that you would like to, that one thing that you say that, if people knew this, it's like, come on, like, just, if you knew this, or if you make this change, then everything would be way better.
Personally challenging for me, don't be afraid to ask for help. I struggle with that. You learn good lessons and you learn bad lessons from the same people.
Okay.
Your heroes, your idols don't always make the best choices.
Okay.
I learned to be very self-reliant growing up. That's something that I wish I would have understood differently. It's very hard for me to ask for help. It's very hard to make a specific ask, not just like, oh yeah, it'd be cool if, Don't be afraid to ask for help. And that goes with paying it forward. If you think about anything you've done, right? How did you end up here in this room hosting this with me? You had help. Whether you know it or not, whether you ask for it or not, you had help.
Absolutely.
So I think don't be afraid to ask for help. And remember that if you're asking for help, you're receiving help. Usually that's for free, the goodness of people's hearts. You should also be paying it forward by giving help, even if there's nothing in it for you. And I think that, you can look at anybody who's been successful in their life at anything, they had help. So
I wholeheartedly agree.
Find someone else to help you.
and help someone.
Absolutely.
Kevin, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us your story, part of it at least. I wish you luck on your trip. I know that you will enjoy it completely, because I know that I get the feeling of you live the present. It's more like you live your day to day and you take it all in.
Sure.
And and it just feels like you are not afraid to take that risk, and you know that it could be much more rewarding than it could be negative. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Thanks again. I won't take up more of your time, and thank you for coming. I know that it was snowing today. It was a bit complicated, but thank you. We'll all take a lot from this interview today.
Absolutely. Well, I'll send you some pictures from my trip.
Absolutely. I'm expecting them.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.